Yo, 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 yo.
We'll hit him with an intro.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, artists and creatives, my name is Forrest, and I'd like to welcome you to Tribal Sounds, where we cover all things creative in audio, photo, and video. We're joined today by our guest, Jim Ebert. He is a Platinum awarded and Grammy-nominated recording engineer and producer. Jim, thank you for joining us today, brother.
How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How's everything been going for you?
Good. Overall, good.
Good to hear that.
Still here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be on with us.
I'm glad you came down.
What led you into the production route, and how did you get
Well,
there?
I was an engineer as a younger person. I played in bands and all through my teens and that stuff, and then ended up in a recording studio at 20, and my band, ironically, after 8 years, broke up in that studio. We played together since we were kids, literally little kids, and we broke up, and the owner of the studio, Q, which is the main building we're in, he was just like, can you do this? Because I have a little side business that I'm trying to really get going. And I said, I guess so, you know what I mean? And thankfully, I was the guy in the band that tinkered with everything, synthesizers and all that stuff. So gear was sort of my second nature.
Awesome.
And, but I knew nothing about recording or anything like that. I kind of just, I learned as I went, and thankfully punk rock and hardcore was big in DC, and those were my first early sessions.
Awesome.
And those recordings, if you listen to them, they can sound like shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Perfect for a young engineer, right?
Yeah.
So I can mix it, don't have to know anything except, you know, relatively what's going on. So I got through that and just started evolving, and eventually I noticed that as my recordings got better, my mixes sounded better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, one fed the other.
Right.
This is not obvious to everyone, but your recordings get better, it becomes very easy to mix. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
we had a
quality.
saying, it's on the tape. You know, when you recorded something so well that you just put faders up and it sounded like a record. You go, it's on the tape. You know, we Q developed and we built this studio. We were in a basement to begin with, and then went to this commercial facility and built multiple rooms. Right. But I was doing was mixing a lot at that point, and one of the interns at the studio was a guy named Carl Martin, and he was in a group called Shy that went to Howard, and he was like, can you come in Saturday and mix our demo? Mm-hmm. I go, sure. And I come in a Saturday, take an hour to mix this a cappella song that sold 2 million records.
Wow.
It was called And If I Ever Fall in Love Again. And Carl looked at me and just was like, I want to bring you to LA to finish the rest of the record. And I'm, sure kid, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I got a call from MCA 2 weeks later saying, you know, come out and help finish this record, because they had other guys mixing it too. Right. So I went out, and that just sort of gave me I'd been an engineer at Q for probably 8 years at that point. Okay. And I was a little burnt out on recording. It wasn't quite, as lack of a better term for me, creative. Mm-hmm. You know, I was kind of producing people by default, because they just would come in, you know, in a studio for our situation like what we had. It'd be 3 hours of jingle in the morning, 4 hours guitar overdubs for something, and 5 hours for a reggae session at night. Right. So you didn't really have enough time to do anything really well. So anyway, they brought me out to Los Angeles to finish the record. I was put in all the studios that you saw in Mix Magazine, right? So I'm this kid. I'm very fortunate, because Q had an SSL, so I was very adept with the SSL. And I was in the room that, you know, the Battleship consoles, every piece of gear you've ever thought about, you know, owning. Yeah. So when I first got to LA, I can remember the session, and I can remember the second engineer. He goes, you know, he's like, what do you want hooked up? And I said, I want everything hooked up. I want to hit a button and see what that does. You know, I've seen it, I've never heard it. You know what I mean? And then I want you to show me how to work it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was cool, you know what I mean? And I was doing things that were probably not right, you know what I mean? Just doing stuff that I had done here, you know, with the gear that we had, which was still pretty ample upstairs, but, and it just kept going, you know what I mean? I kind of developed a reputation for mixing R&B, which was what my current hit was with, so I was very fortunate that I had a hit record when I landed in LA, so I was working right away.
Yeah, have a little bit of backing with
Yeah. Oh, in LA, it's what have you done for me lately? Who's current? So that was me at that point.
Cool.
So I was busy and I was getting overpaid, which was fine with me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And quick story, I kind of got burned a little by MCA, the A&R guy, because he goes, what do you want to mix a song? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, we'll pay you $500. And that's what I made in a week. You know what I mean? I'm like, you're gonna pay me $500 a song, and I get to work in this studio, and that's it? And he goes, yeah. And then I find out everyone else on the record is getting paid $1,500 a song. You know, so my rates went up.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun. But after several years, you know, I was good at recording R&B and mixing R&B, but I was a little burnt out on it.
Right.
So my background was rock music, and you know, it's like that's kind of want to try to go back to that. So a conscious decision was made just to kind of stop mixing R&B, and I did. Very fortunate. I've had a lot of fortunate things, some bad, but a lot of fortunate. So I was in Las Vegas with my wife at the time, and I got a call from a friend who was a manager, and he managed a guy named Jason Faulkner. And he goes, our engineer backed out, and the record starts Monday. Can you come back and do it? And I said, yeah. I don't know who Jason was, but yeah, sure, I'll do it. Yeah. I didn't know I was going to be stuck in a room with a genius for 6 weeks recording a record, you know what I mean? He just was amazing. And we had a blast, you know what I mean? We were just two guys. He played everything. So it was me and him, three guys, and the assistant engineer.
Nice.
And we just made this record that you know, didn't sell anything, of course, but critics darling, but it got me a lot of work.
Yeah, and you got to make music, and on your terms with them, correct? Like, I mean,
and Jason, because I had learned as an engineer how to do things fairly properly. This is how you record this very properly. Jason kind of threw that out the window. He had been through records with a very famous producer named Jack Joseph Puig, engineer producer, and high budget records. He was in a band called Jellyfish. Okay. And you know, they spent a day working on their tambourine sounds, you know what I mean? It's that kind of record. Yeah. And they sound amazing. They really do. Those Jellyfish records, if you ever heard them, just listen, they're just amazing. But he's like, oh no, you got to compress it harder. And I'm like, so he is the reason I was destroyed, because I am known to compress the shit out of everything.
Oh, that's great.
You know, he really taught me to make it sound like we want it to sound, not later. You know what I mean? And I've adapted that my whole career. I really want to record it the way I want it to sound.
Right, getting it right at the source.
Yeah. So I mean, I print guitars with delay, vocals with compression, distortion, all that stuff. You know what I mean? I usually run, because we have unlimited tracks now, so I'll run a separate line for like a bass distortion or something like that. So I'm not completely committing all the way. So
you still kind of do the parallel processing on it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I can do that. Those early days of mixing, I didn't do a lot of parallel, and I didn't do a lot of shelving the way I do now, but it was good.
You were still cutting, you were literally cutting tape back then? Or?
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
What was that like?
Amazing, and it was a pain in the ass at the same time.
I can only imagine.
Well, you had to map, it's good for committing.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to make a decision.
You have to make decisions, and you have to go with it, as opposed to now, print it, we'll decide later. Yeah, I don't really go with that mantra. So tape kind of taught me that, because it's like, we have 2 tracks left. Can you beat the vocal? That kind of thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you had to map the whole thing out. So, okay, we're going to have this track we're going to actually do on 16 track. We're going to have 4 tracks for the drums, so we're going to have 12 mic lines coming into the console, and we're going to bust them out and make sure that each track is what we want it to be, you know, kick, snare, stereo, everything else. But that's also a great learning trick. But it really made me stick with print it the way you want it to sound, and your life will be easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, there's other guys, I'm not belittling guys that put everything off to the end. I just don't want to spend 3 days working on a mix because no one committed to anything, right?
Yeah.
That sucks the life out of me. I want to sit down and be creative and get things going. And if I have to make decisions for other people's guitar amp sound or something like that, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I can see like the benefit of like almost painting the outline of the portrait as you go, or like
That's absolutely right. I have a very good vision of what I want the song to sound like before I start it.
That's good. And how much pre-production goes into?
Depends on the
like
client.
Okay.
It really does. Sometimes none. I'm very good at thinking on my feet and showing up and doing it.
Right.
But always I've listened to what the song is, what we're going to be doing. Talk to the artist about what direction, so they're making sure my green is their green.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we can sit down and then we can come in. I tend to, solo artists use my band. I have 2 or 3 versions of bands that I use, R&B, rock,
Yeah.
you know, kind of stuff.
Guys who can come in and cut it.
And they're amazing, and I know I can get what I want quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's no ego.
Right.
I don't deal with ego or assholes at this point in life.
No,
You know what I mean? So I just, if you're the drummer coming out, I got to get this fill in. No, here you go. 2 and 4, lay it down. This is a Tom Petty bass kind of thing. Let's be simple. You know, we got a very popular saying here. It's called Tom Petty ain't wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I dig it.
So I just, you know, just really love working with people and playing music. That's kind of my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? I'm okay at programming, but it's not really my thing. Maybe I'll get better at it. Maybe I won't. You know what I mean?
Well, what you're doing is working, so I'll just keep rolling.
Yeah, I know. You always try to grow, and you know, you've probably experienced how many amazing sounds and everything else that you have access now. You know, play your keyboard, and you know, you've got a full, very authentic sounding orchestra and all those kind of things. So, I would like to get a little further into that, but by the same token, I have what I do, and it pretty typically always sounds pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things I've noticed about your mixes is you have a very good ability to adjust the stereo image and how you layer things where it's going up to the center and the focus is there. And we have like the supporting instrumentation on the left and the right, and it's a very full sound just in that triad of sounds.
Well, thank you.
It's noticeable in every single track. I love it. Like,
well, we have 2 speakers. I like to use them. You know what I mean? I like things to be put off to the side, and I do like that center just to be there. I mean, it's almost like I have nothing at 11 and 1.
Right.
11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. I have everything's always like hard panned or 9 and 3, you know, and then center.
And like one of the things that it does, I mean, it full bodies the music. And I was listening to some of the tracks from Butch Walker and stuff,
Right.
and it's like really, really nice to hear the artist. And I feel like there was plenty of breathing room in between those areas.
Thank you. That record was like the easiest record, the Letters record, Butch Walker, because he's amazing, right? I mean, like super badass, super hard worker, super recording producer, all of it. You know what I mean? But as a player, he's amazing. A singer, you know, there's a lot of funny stories. It's like, how many more fucking words can you put in that line? And anyway, we just had a blast. We cut it very quick. I think we cut it in 7 or 8 days.
Wow.
We mixed it in 3, maybe.
No kidding. What a track.
And we just didn't think. You know, Butch and I are very similar in that we don't overthink.
Right.
It sounds good. Okay, let's go.
That's good.
It doesn't sound good. Let's do it again. Okay, we tried it again. It still doesn't sound good. All right, let's scrap it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's do something else.
Now that producer-artist relationship is super important that I've found as well. And like, how do you handle a scenario when it isn't as gelling, like, or whenever you might come at odds or butt heads with an artist?
Rarely ever happens. You know, we're going to get into this a little later, but I had cancer for quite a while. I'm a survivor of 20 years. One of the lines I use all the time is, when things get a little, we're not curing cancer.
Right.
You know, we're making a song. You know, let's have a good time, because we're going to hear that.
Yeah.
If the song is about a good time, you know, we should have a good time.
Yeah, for
you know what I
sure.
mean? If you're drowning in sorrow, then, you know, we'll relay that too. You know, I'll set that up for you so that you can drown in sorrow in the other room. So I really have never really butted heads. I can think of maybe 2 clients as an engineer that it didn't really work out. 2 clients maybe as a producer that it didn't really work out.
That's really reassuring.
Well, thank you.
That's
thank
awesome,
you.
man.
Yeah, I've done this almost 35 years, 36 years, I guess. Quite a while.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, whenever like the A&R guys come into it, or like whenever there's extra hands in the pot, so to speak, like how does managing all the different personalities with the vision, how does that play out?
I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated that. I don't do a lot of label work now, and I love it. You know what I mean? I love the fact that there's not a deadline, there's not a commercial target for what this needs to be. I didn't like A&R people coming in and sort of grading your report card, you know what I mean? You're 3/4 of the way, have a guy sit there and very stuffily, you know, do all that.
It's interesting. I was always wondering, like, whenever you have additional people in there, and like how it might, it can really change the course or the compass of an entire composition.
Well, there's. I'm not trying to throw A&R under the bus, but there's competent and there's new.
Right.
Right. There's a couple of very competent, very musically educated A&R people that I've worked with, but it was still like getting your paper graded.
Right.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Example. I mean, Meredith Brooks when making that record, to have Perry, who was one of those A&R guys, who was very bright.
Yeah.
But that was a very nerve-wracking situation. He would come in and, you know, that's not working. He was a British guy. That's not working, you know. And, you know, that's a very glorious position to be in. It's like an associate producer where you walk in and go, nah, do that again.
Yeah, we need to get to the...
You guys just spent a week on it, but do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to go back to the drawing board.
Right.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, especially for the artist as well. That's what I've always thought about too, and with some of the reasons I've been selfish with a lot of the work. Sometimes I feel having all those different people reach in can change the artistic intent. And I think that what you're trying to do is really good for the artist whenever you're allowing that freedom.
I try to be very aware of everything going on in the room. Even if I'm up here, you know, working on something, I try to be cognitive of someone talking about this part or that part or maybe this, and sort of digest all of that when I'm working. I think it's really important to just make sure your artist is just comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a lot of people come in like with my band, and they're like a little intimidated when they walk in, and then the guys just make them immediately feel at home. And I try to just leave, because I trust and I want other people's input. So I will say, you know, what do you feel there? You know, to one of my guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then there's times I'll say, I want this part.
Yeah.
Right.
Play it like this.
Play it like this.
And that's good to have all of that. Like, and you're very much like a painter with that respect.
I think it's a fair analogy.
Yeah, because I mean, you're choosing the tools for the job, and those serve the individual purposes. How are you able to get the best out of maybe like a newbie who just comes into the recording studio and they don't have the experience?
Well, I think most of those people, most people that are new, will learn a lot.
Yeah. With
what I'm doing. I love working with young people. I love working with old people. I love just working with people. For sure. In general, I'm a people person, so I like the involvement of all of us making music.
Yeah, and the rapport building and all of that. That trust. I mean, you worked on my record whenever I was 19,
right.
And like that was a moment that stuck with me a long time, and it still has. It actually inspired me to pursue in production. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, my wallet is too.
Right, I understood.
But it's so rewarding because it's that people aspect and being able to build that relationship with them and really help and have something like that's rewarding at the end of it to provide to them.
Well, that's it. I mean, because people sometimes will come in and say, well, you're really expensive. And I'll say, well, you're really cheap. Or I'll say, you know, you got to put this forward. You know, people are making demos now that sound like records, right. For better or worse. So you got to make sure that it's what you think you can sell, because this is the easy part. Yeah. Recording it and making it great is the easy part. What you do with it after that is the hard part. For sure. Marketing it, promotion, getting it to blow up, all of those things. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's hard.
It is really insanely hard. I mean, I've tried to do that in endeavors as well, and I'm sure there's tons of other artists who take the lead in that role.
I wish there was, because business people will look at it and go, there's got to be a set pattern to making a hit. I said, well, there's steps that you can use, but your song still has to be a hit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You can decorate it, produce it, but your song still needs to be a hit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that happens. I'm sure there's a million hits that have been overlooked.
Yeah.
But there are hit songs like Bitch. We're working on Bitch, and the second engineer, Husky, who's a great engineer on his own now, but he was like, "Shit, I'm gonna hear this song all summer." You know what I mean? And that's because you know it. You know what I mean?
Felt that way.
Yeah. It's just, oh, this is a hit song, and the label knew it, so they had a different producer produce Bitch, and then they hired my friend Dave Ricketts to produce the rest of the record, because the initial producer had done a full record for it, but they hated it.
Right.
Bitch was like, they knew they had a hit, but the rest of the record they hated.
They're like, we're going to roll with it.
Yeah, and we're gonna have this guy do it, because Dave was very artistically balanced. You know, he was gonna. So anyway, we made a good record. Overall, I think we made a good record as a whole, with a big hit.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a phenomenal record all the way through, front to back.
Well,
I mean,
thank you.
It's awesome. So with the Butch Walker's records, there were some skits in there. Now, was that your brainchild, or was that something that
Mainly his.
Okay.
Mainly his. There's a couple that we just did impromptu.
Yeah.
But there are some that are third party that you can tell are imported in.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That was mainly his doing.
It's pretty. I've always enjoyed that, where you almost kind of go on the journey of.
Well, that's one thing I don't like about the single song theory of where we're at.
Yeah, right.
You know
now,
what I mean?
you press a single and keep it rolling.
Yeah, and then hit or shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really like that. I like full records. I like to listen to full records. I like the little interludes in between, all of those things.
Yeah, same. I'm hugely influenced by Queens of the Stone Age, and I've always enjoyed listening front to back, because it's an entire experience.
Right.
And like the hits from those records allow you to feel an emotion, but the entire emotion is actually within the record, and that is something that we miss out on.
Well, I think that I was very fortunate to grow up where, I'm of an age where, when I was a kid, you would run to Giant Music and buy the 45. If you liked the 45, you would buy the record. And you would go on my bike, go up and grab the record that I want, and go home and take the cellophane off and look at the liner notes and listen to the record with my band and friends, and maybe smoke pot too while we're listening to it, depending on the record. And it was amazing. You know what I mean? Just to sit down with your old ass Pioneer stereo and listen to the whole record, the Cars. I remember buying the Cars record from beginning to end, just listening to that and going, oh my God.
I want to do that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I said. I said, however they're doing that, I want to learn that.
Yeah, it's such a similar story even for me in the early 90s. I remember I really wasn't into music. My family was. So they were big into gospel music and everything, and I just wasn't into it. But I went to a bargain bin in Walmart, and I found Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, and Metallica. Weird combinations, but like, I listened to them, and it just turned my mind, and being able to turn the pages and feel the music and feel like I was a part of it, even though it happened before my time. I think it was just all something that is missing in a lot of modern.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of amazing modern recordings and music. I get a little discouraged with radio pop.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's just a little, sometimes it's a little trite, and it's a little too bright and compressed for what I like.
Yeah.
As if you look around my room here, you can see it's largely analog front end.
Yeah.
So everything gets a very pure, beautiful treatment going into 88.2 Pro Tools, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Top of the line stuff. I mean, like using the Neves, the preamps, and like using the Universal Audio LA stuff.
API stuff. I mean, it just.
Now that's an interesting question. Now, API or Neve for drums? Which one do you normally tend to?
I would go kick drum, API, snare drum, Neve.
Nice. Okay.
Overheads, if it's jazz, I'd go API. Overheads, Neve for rock.
Yeah, I really like those. Having the combination of the two in here is
It's huge.
It's nice because mixing and matching those sounds are both desirable.
Yeah.
Services like Fiverr and the services that promote production, what value or what harm do you see it causing to the industry?
Well, I mean, I could certainly see that in some cases it's great, and I can see some cases where it's just not going to be. There's a cohesion when you're creating a track. This is the same thing with sending tracks to someone else and say, you know, play drums on them in Nashville and send that to me. If that's what you need to do, okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's cheap, you know?
Right.
It's cheap to, guys in Nashville, they'll or wherever, will do 5 drum tracks a day at $150 each or whatever, and they have their complete setup at home and make a living, and that's great. That's great. I like to have the back and forth so we can go, okay, the kick drum needs to be on, you know, 2 and 4 here, whatever the case may be, and be able to guide it. And work with my artists and just say, you know, that's feeling good to you. You know what I mean?
And that's you're really embodying the true role of a producer in that manner. And we artists, especially artists like myself, if we get a laptop or something, and we're automatically a producer, so we say or so we feel. But the truth is, like, it does take that guiding hand, and oftentimes it's really.
You know, I mean, I think that anything can happen. So you could do it virtually and have a huge success, and I'm completely wrong. You know what I mean? That's really it. And I can do it the same way, and you're completely wrong. But there's no right or wrong. It's just, let's try to get some success. So the issue is going to be there's just too much. There's too much music for the commerce that can support it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? There is. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
There's a gazillion people making records, and there's only room for a select few to get through. They can be good, they can be bad, but they just have to have the right song that hits the right people at the right time. Maybe they're signed, maybe they're not.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that the whole digital domain has done has, to a certain degree, eliminated talented A&R, because they can look, oh, this song is doing fairly well here. It's kind of blowing up without promotion. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
So they can kind of say it's kind of foolproof. You know what I mean? Let's grab this. You know what I mean?
Or they have this amount of following, so
that's right.
They're an easy buy.
Yeah.
Which I feel that a lot, and think that some people in like the musical circles feel that as well, where someone who might not have high quality artistic music, but they have the ability to write a song, where they're getting exposure or they're getting the deal, so to speak. And whereas some people who don't have that following aren't as easy of a.
Well, I don't think a great song has to be difficult or it has to be easy. It's just something that appeals to you know, a hit song is going to appeal to a mass. Right.
Universal theme.
Yeah, and you know, we have independent promotion now. It's always been there.
Right.
But now it's, I don't know if it does any good or not. You know what I mean? You can hire someone to get you 100,000 streams or whatever it's going to be. Are they bots? Maybe. Does it get you good? Do you get maybe 300 back on your 2,000 you spent? Maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who knows? You know, sometimes you got to try, though. You know.
For sure.
You know, it's just when we get to this point, it's like, God, we got this. It's really good. You know.
How do we get ears on it?
Yeah, that's right. And at least you know that's an attempt.
Yeah.
You know,
that's true, and with us having the access to broadcasting it to a wider audience more and more as they.
Well, I think that you have to be your own best advocate. I've had certainly people that come in and they're like, "Well, I don't want to do anything." You know, no, you have to want this more than maybe your parent.
Right.
Because I've had the momagers and dadagers come in with their kid, and I'm going, she's got to want it more than you, Dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
You know.
That's true. I mean, and you always have to want it. That's a good mantra for life in general. I mean, like, whatever you're trying to do, why not try to be the best at it or do the best you can at it?
That's right. And I think Butch Walker is the best scenario. It's just like there was no way he was going to be denied.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whatever he does, guitar playing, production, he's got his core fan base across the country. Yeah. So I think he's got it really good. You know, he can tour and make a little money, and he produces a lot of good stuff, and he works hard. Yeah. I think that the trick to Los Angeles is be talented and work really hard.
Right.
I had a conversation with, when I first moved to LA, because I knew through the grapevine, I knew Ron St. Germain, who was a big producer of like 90s, a lot of 90s stuff and 80s and 90s. And he was kind enough to talk to me. He goes, man, just do good work all the time. Work hard, do good work all the time, the money will come.
Yeah.
He was right.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't go wrong that way.
Well, it's like a lot of people that will come in, you know, I'm saying, you know, if they're older, I'll say, you're doing this because you have to do it.
Right.
This is something you have to knock off your bucket list, and that's fine. I'll help you do that. You know, but if you're expecting fame at 52 years old, may not be really attainable.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, writing is a huge thing as well. I mean, hopefully that's one of the avenues that someone in that category would fall into, maybe wanting to pursue songwriting.
It has happened, but I mean, you just have to, a lot of times you do this because you have to do it. Right. You want to do it. You want to get your record done because it's in your head and you got to do it.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. Who were some of your engineer influences and some of the producers that you look up to, current or past?
Okay, probably more 90s. Brendan O'Brien, I really like the stuff that he did. Cool. Mixing wise, probably Chad Blake.
Chad Blake.
You know what I mean? That's probably the two right now. Are you familiar with those guys?
I know both of the names. I can't pinpoint.
Brendan just did such a wide variety. Like now he does, I think, Springsteen and stuff like that. But he did Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. STP.
Some Pearl Jam, some Queens of the Stone Age, I believe.
Was he doing the? Was he the one who did like Core?
He did like the first four records.
The first four. So yeah, phenomenal. You know, all of them are ridiculous, out of this world.
Chad was, the thing I liked about Chad Blake's mixes was, to me, the spectrum always seemed a little lower. There wasn't just burning high end on the mixes, but there was still a very full range. He did the early Sheryl Crow, Crowded House, you know, stuff like that. I'm sure there's other stuff in between that I don't know.
For sure.
I'd say that. Lenoir, Daniel Lenoir, who did the early U2, I think he would probably be one of those guys that record it the way you want it to sound.
Right.
Came from, you know, put the delay, put all edges, delays and everything on there, you know.
The super chain.
Yeah, you're not going to recreate that in a mix. So, yeah.
It's what I've done after it's curated.
Yeah.
So I attended music college.
Right.
And I wanted to kind of pick your mind about how you see, or if it's benefiting artists and producers into the career.
Right. I think everyone's individual on that, because I've certainly seen people that still didn't know their head from their ass when they got out with a 4-year degree, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I've seen other guys that are just already ready to go, you know what I mean? So I really think that comes down to the individual. If I was going to go into that as a young person, I would try to intern somewhere like this first.
Yeah, for sure.
And get a little working knowledge, so that when you went to school, it wasn't complete noise, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that way you have that little bit of background as well. Now, do you all offer stuff like that here at Q? Or?
They do.
Okay.
They do. So that's and they do one-on-one, a lot of one-on-one stuff, which is a great way to learn, and you'll get to actually do it. You know what I mean? By the time you leave, you recorded something.
Yeah, and hands-on experience is worth
it's
exponential
huge, huge. But I'm not taking any away from the big box, you know, recording schools.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the opportunity. It was great to be in the culture cauldron and like get to experience everybody who was coming in and around from other parts of the world. That was great, and networking opportunities. I feel like whenever I started working with individuals personally on this, in the one-on-one aspect, that I was able to learn more faster. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Because there's certain things that you just can't set up in textbook.
Well, you don't know it.
Right.
So someone's going to ask you something that you don't know. Can you get me this? Well, we're going to try. You know what I mean?
How can we do it now?
And then you learn just from that.
And with the amount of microphones, like just the different placements of it was great to learn the theory of the placement. But I found in practice that sometimes you put microphones in random places and get the sounds. Yes. Yeah, which is great. That's the part of the experiment and the fun of it.
The biggest probably lights on experience I had as a young engineer was just really understanding phase when waveforms were not sounding right, you know what I mean, in a stereo file when things were not jiving, and how to eliminate that. Because I used to use, you know, 10 mics on a guitar cabinet and all the different amps. And then I quickly got to, with the Jason Faulkner record, it's a Vox AC30. We put 2 mics on it.
Perfect.
And we get them in phase, and we make it sound great. Carried through with Butch as well, AC30s and Bogners.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Same thing though. And now it's the same thing. I typically, it's a Royer and a 57,
Yeah,
and even in that little, they make a phase clip basically, and I use that, and you know, it just make it easy, man. Just get the right amp, put it in phase, get some mics, make it sound the way you want it to sound, and go.
What you're saying is right. Like, I mean, the R121 with a 57, I don't think that there's a better combination.
I mean, there's obviously different variations of that, but I mean, that's the idea. I had a project years ago sent to me with, there was like 8 guitar parts, and they had recorded 8 different amp simulations for each track. So it'd be 64 tracks total. And they all sounded like shit, right? You know, there wasn't one amplifier they had that was like, you know. And so when I tried to combine them, it was just a phase warfare, you know. I mean, I couldn't get any clarity at all out of the mix. And I just sent their money back and just said, you guys get one good amp, put 2 mics in front of it, and finish the record.
Nice.
So
that's good. Less is more in that scenario for sure. Now with the profiling and emulation business,
my God!
So they're getting better. What are your opinions on use in the studio?
love them.
You dig it?
I still use amps all the time,
Right.
but I use the Kemper quite a bit.
Kemper's beautiful.
I have friends that use the Aux, which is great. Have you used that before?
Yeah, the Aux box from UAD.
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool
a
stuff.
great invention. I still use amps, so I combine them a lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about the emulation world is that you can switch very quickly.
Right.
So.
And it memorizes. You don't have to write down on pen and paper, store screenshots.
Yeah.
I like that, the being able to do the instant call.
And you know, within certain, all my guys know what I typically like to use, and, you know, so they'll typically set it up for me. They may not agree with some of it, but they, you know, most of the time they do. I'm not asking for anything crazy, but.
Are you all still bouncing out to tape, like after you get everything digital and then you feed it back through?
No, our tape machines need some work.
Okay.
You know, and the last time I did it's been a few years, I did an all tape project. I couldn't find any rooms I could mix that automation worked or recall worked or anything like that. So it's just, you know, I'm on this API console mixing with my feet because there's no automation, and I'm trying to reach everything, and just starts outweighing, you know, the good.
Right.
I did a project a few years ago, just putting drums in it and putting it down to Pro Tools and editing it and doing it. That worked fine.
Nice.
So if we get it back up and, you know, going, which we will, I'll probably get back to doing that.
Shoot, just let me know.
Depending on the budget, because you got to have the time to.
Yeah, that's a different animal altogether. It's a beast. The tape sound is amazing. Now, whenever you all were mixing to records, I've heard that the kick had to be on a specific channel because it couldn't be on the edge of the record. Is that true?
Tape?
Yeah, not tape. Mixing for vinyl.
Oh, well, with vinyl, the low frequencies, they have to be center.
Okay.
Because they take up too much space, right? So I don't know if that's how that whole system of how we listen to music with bass in the middle and kick and snare, probably.
Right.
But vinyl was limiting. So with digital audio, it was cool. I was like, oh, cool, I can put low frequencies out on the side, and I'm not.
If you could go back in time and revisit yourself, young Ebert, what would be the piece of the advice, or what would be a piece of advice that you'd give yourself in production specifically?
Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it.
That was probably my early on. You know what I mean? Okay, well, we're not there yet, so I'll use 3 EQs. And looking back, okay, we used 3 EQs for the snare drum. Did it sound okay? It sounded okay.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But was it worth it?
Well, yeah, just don't overthink it. Just you know, that'd probably be it. I've been very fortunate. You know, I've always, even as a kid, I had an API console. You know what I mean? Then I had an SSL, and always had decent mic pre's and stuff like that. And you can see now the room is completely decked out. You know what I mean? I can always have a Class A or Class AB mic catching the source sound, mic pre catching the sound, and then just go from there. You know what I mean? I do the same thing. You're right about mic placement, because when you're dealing with multiple microphones in phase, you have to be a little more careful. But there might be like it sounds better with the mic 3 feet away from the tom. You know what I mean? There's just different ways to do it.
On the microphone subject, real quick, I wanted to ask, which one is your favorite that you use here at the studio?
My favorite
Your
mic.
favorite, like, if you go and grab a mic, which one do you normally reach for?
I sold it.
No!
I sold it years ago. Yeah, I sold a U47 that I regret, because it was like, I know I'm never going to buy another one. You know what I mean?
Right.
But anyway, I sold it because of tax debt.
Got you.
So it was like, okay, later. I don't think there is a one mic that I would grab. I think that, like, vocally, if it's a loud male vocal, I'm typically going to use an SM7. If it's softer, I have a Suez, the Rush mic.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's great. It's great with females too.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's like one go-to. No.
Yeah,
I'd say guitar-wise,
Yeah,
it's going to be the Royer 57 combination.
Right, I really dig that. That's why it almost never leaves my guitar combo. I mean, I leave that one in place, but with every voice is different, and I found that a lot of the gear channels or forums that I'm a part of, they like to get in bickering arguments over microphones, but the truth is each one serves its separate purposes.
Well, I think that there's still people just haven't, that think, well, the most expensive mic is the best mic, and that's not true. Right. It depends on what you're recording, right? Maybe it is. Right. Maybe it's the right microphone for your voice, but it's not the right mic for the kick drum or whatever else. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, the Sony for Mariah Carey doesn't do any justice to Chris Cornell's vocals.
Right. It's just different things, you know? Different things.
For sure.
Just got to go through it.
Yeah.
And then when you hear something good, you go, I like that. You know what I mean? I hate cymbals, so when I hear a cymbal that I like, I'm like, we got to take note of what that is. For sure. What I mean?
Yeah, each one of them are so different now. I don't know how to pronounce the name. I think it's menial.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't really like cymbals or hi-hats, so I'm getting to a point now where I'm cutting them separately.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And fucking with a little bit, whether it's through format or with any kind of manipulation of modulation and things like that.
Interesting.
Just to make them sound a little more interesting, because I think they're annoying as hell.
So are you generally having the drummer just hang tight on the hi-hat and the snare and kick? Or even
they can even put a pad on the hi-hat, you know, if they need it. And one of my guys that I use quite a bit will just hit his leg. You know what I mean?
Nice. How do you pick your musicians?
Well, I have, first and foremost, they cannot be an asshole. They cannot have an ego.
Yeah.
And they have to make the artist feel great.
Awesome.
You can be, and you have to understand what a song is, right? Because you can be this guy, and if I have a song that needs that, then I've got guys that do that, or I've got one or two. And then if you need a more rounded, you know, Americana, which is at my age, I'm doing more and more Americana. Nice. Got that too. That's it. You know what I mean? Nice. I've got kind of a soul version of bands, you know, for more soul stuff that I do. There is a large misconception that if you're amazing live, you're good here. It's just not true. Right. There are some that are, but you know, I've had many fired musicians. Okay. You know, well, he's great, and he does this. He went to Berkeley, and he plays in this, and or whatever. And they came in and just, you know, not getting the connection of the song and what we're trying to do. So that's it. I just, through experience, I've done this a long time, so I understand the players that I need and that I really enjoy.
That's good to know.
And I want to be able to call it out quickly. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I have to know the person, right? Right. And they have to be a bit like-minded, that I can say, play it like that Stone Temple Pilot song. Right. You know what I mean? And have them go, oh, okay. Yeah, that one. You know what I mean? Or play it like this Mumford. Right. You know what I mean? And they know it. You know, they know the vibe. They got a good palette to choose from. That's correct. Yeah, which is super memory. Yeah, super memory. I mean, that's one of the huge benefits I found in playing with live musicians and who are also versed in the studio, as well as they normally play multiple genres of music, and they have a large pool of inspiration that they get as well. That's right. Who played on yours?
I had Stephen Allen, who I went to school with up in Berkeley, and then I had a mixed bag of other folks. Luke Hodges was a local from where I was at, and he played the keys, and it was just all buddies of mine whenever we got that. And we were fortunate enough to muster up our 19 years of strength.
Make it work. Make it work.
So what do you got going on now? Like, what's some of your projects?
Well, I mean, I really, right now I finished with a project with a young woman named Juliette Lloyd.
Okay.
Sort of in that Sarah Bareilles camp.
Oh, nice.
She's got a beautiful voice.
Man, I love Sarah Bareilles.
Yeah, so she's awesome. I've got this group called Decibel and the Boom from New Jersey, which is basically a couple guys, and then they play everything, and they come down. It's rock. It's straight ahead album rock is what I would say. And then I'm working with a guy named Chris Cassidy now, and he's going in tomorrow actually to finish his album. It's pretty rock. It's just it's rock. You know, I can't.
I'd love to hear that.
It's pretty straight ahead. It's got a few thorns, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any contemporary artists who influence you at all?
Ooh. My kid, who's 23, sends me stuff all the time.
Awesome.
That I think is pretty good. I wish I could, you know, it's cool because he sends me stuff and he goes, example, Elliott Smith, who we were talking about earlier. I go, yeah, of course I know Elliott Smith. You know, I know all those records. And he was getting into it, you know what I mean? And then he'll send me other stuff that I have no idea, never heard even the faintest idea. We talked briefly about it, but there's just so much. I mean, I'll have people say there's no good music anymore. And that's not really true.
Right.
But you got to look harder.
Yeah, you just got to dig.
You know what I mean? You can find something. You know, I can probably turn you on to 2 or 3 based on what you like.
For sure.
You know.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Hozier whenever he first came on the scene, and still with the second album, all that stuff was great music, and it was modern music and pop on the radio hits. It was good to listen to, but I find that a lot of the deep cut album artists from Canada, I find a lot of Canadian artists regularly.
They're I mean, the cool thing and the bad thing is we have experience, we have access to everything.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really hard to whittle down what you love. But when you hear it, you know if you love it.
For sure.
But it definitely makes it hard for people to succeed on a large scale.
Yeah.
Because you have to get, again, you have to have the hit, right? And then it has to be marketed in a massive fashion, which is a lot of money, which is what a label would be for.
Right.
And then there's some that just catch viral, you know, but again, they're small fractions.
Yeah, for sure. It's just still just the luck.
So if you want to record your record, love to help you.
Yeah.
But just understand, it's very difficult, you know, to get past. You know, I wish I could say, yeah, come record with me, and I'll send it to Bob, and Bob will make it a hit. Now, there are guys that will tell you that.
For sure.
And I will not tell you that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good, honest approach to it, too, and that's the facts, right?
You know, I have a foundation called Cancer Can Rock.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that. How's you guys have been doing that for, what, 8, 9 years now?
About that.
Awesome.
And I'm a 20-year cancer survivor, 21 year, and I just literally on the way back from where I was being treated at Duke, I thought I got to do something to help people. What can I do? This is what I can do.
Yeah.
So we bring people in wherever they're at, all over the country, and sometimes we go to them and record a song and a video. So they have their family, their friends, it's permanent.
That's awesome.
So regardless of what happens to their cancer, they'll always have this.
Yeah, leave a legacy.
That's right. That's exactly the right word.
That's beautiful. I mean,
it's very simple. It's like make a wish for musicians with cancer.
Yeah, I mean.
But we take people from all over, you know. We just had a guy, Jim Little, down from some outskirt of Canada, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Occasionally
we've been to Nashville a couple of times, we've been to LA a few times to record people that are out there, and it's amazing.
That's so good, man. I'm glad to hear that, and it goes with the notion that music it's healing art.
Well, it is,
and it's amazing that you're able to do that with the foundation, and you guys are giving back that way.
Yeah, it's probably the most rewarding thing I've done.
Yeah.
In this industry, you know. There are other, you know, you get a record here that does success or whatever, that's great. But this is the most reward. When you sit down next to someone and they're looking at you with a little bit of a tear and they go, "This is the best day of my life," then that's very powerful.
It is.
So
sure.
Years ago, someone told that to me, and I'm like, shit, now I'm doing this the rest of my life.
Yeah, man. Well, that's great. I mean, where can we find more
CancerCanRock.org.
CancerCanRock.org. Awesome. I'm going to want to go into that, and I would love to participate and be at the next event that you all hold as well.
Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Yep.
So how many people have you all worked with Cancer Can Rock?
We worked with 41 people, I believe.
41.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like a lot in 8 years, but we're a small foundation, and you know, I find people through Facebook or a friend tells them about it and they come in. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we kind of are. We're kind of at a point where we have more people than we can fund.
Gotcha.
So we're, you know, having to play like big boys now and try to go find bigger funding and all those kind of things, which I'm not good at. So thankfully I have people around me that can help me with that. I mean, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony in that I can get along with people and make music for them. Right. So if you want to donate,
go on.
CancerCanRock.org.
So when is you all's next event?
We have an event July 10th at 868 Winery in Purcellville. Great lineup of musicians. That's one thing that, in starting this, you know, there's so much bad crap, especially right now, going on in the world. Right. It's just amazing to see kindness. And the musicians that I asked to play at our events, just top notch, just yes. Awesome. I don't think anyone, other than being scheduled for something else, I don't think anyone's ever said no.
Yeah, I mean.
It's just, that's really, it's amazing. And I'm not asking slackers to play.
Right.
I mean, they're like, if you come out to 868 Winery, you're going to get $300 in entertainment throughout the day. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're going to pay $15-20 to get in and be outside. Hopefully weather will be great, and wine and food. Listen to this, why wouldn't you want to go?
Yeah.
And then the other one is September 24th at Sunshine Ridge Winery.
Awesome.
So, and we got a couple things for next year, so we haven't solidified yet.
Very good. Well, I'm sure everyone can find it over on the website.
They can.
CancerCanRock.org.
Yep. We'll
definitely check into that. I wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time with me today. I mean, this is a little bit of a dream come true for me, myself. I mean, you're a huge idol of mine as far as music production.
You need better idols, my friend.
I mean, you've inspired me a whole lot.
Okay, so you should rephrase that. You're a huge fallen idol of mine.
That's too good. Jim, I appreciate the time.
Yeah, brother.
Thank you very much for being here. And thank you for inviting me into this beautiful studio.
If any of you guys need to record, you can hit me up at ebertaudio@gmail.com and just see if we're the right fit, and we'll go from there.